Good evening, everyone. I hope you all had a wonderful festive season with your near and dear ones. I had a great time too. And we're all back to the grind. And this is the episode 2 of the second season of our much loved show, Leadership Spotlight series by Positive Vibes Consulting. Our first episode with Harjeet Khanduja was a roaring success with a lot of takeaways and insights in Harjeet's signature style. And today's session promises to be even more insightful and full of learnings and very simple and practical takeaways for all of us because today we have with us a stalwart of the fraternity. He's someone who absolutely needs no introduction because he has inspired millions of HR professionals across the world through his innovative work, extremely value adding sessions at various forums, and his overall thought leadership. Absolutely honored and delighted to have with us Dr. Aquil Busrai. Welcome, sir.
Thank you. Thank you, Shivani. Thank you very much.
So, though Dr. Busrai needs no introduction, but I would definitely like the audience to know and, get inspired from his fantastic career journey. Dr. Busrai has had a very illustrious career of 5 decades in the industry. He's worked in various HR roles with Unilever in Kenya and India and was the executive director HR Motorola for Asia Pacific countries. He's worked with Shell Malaysia as Director HR and Managing Director of Shell People Services Asia. His last corporate assignment was with IBM India as Executive Director Human Resources, and he's currently the CEO of Aquil Busrai Consulting. He's also the past president of NHRDN. He's a visiting faculty at some of the most premium B schools across the world, like Berkeley, EMP, and UCLA, besides the IIMs. He's on the National Council of CII, ASSOCHAM, SHRM, ETHR, and ISTD. He's a keen student of non-verbal communication and is also writing a book on body language. He's an ardent wildlife enthusiast and he's also a serious wildlife photographer. Wow. Dr. Busrai, from HR to wildlife photography, how has the journey been?
The journey is always exciting, but sometimes there's a hidden desire that I should have been a wildlife photographer as a professional.
Sorry, could you say that again?
There's a hidden desire, always a wishful thinking that I wish I was a wildlife photographer as a profession.
Well, then, if you were a wildlife photographer by profession, today's session would have been around the nuances of wildlife photography and not being a proactive HR agent. But a very, very illustrious journey, sir, very inspiring for a lot of us who've actually grown up, listening to you on various forums and getting inspired by the wonderful work that you've done for so many decades for the fraternity. So, coming to the topic for today, Dr. Busrai, HR has, for the longest period, been considered as a reactive change agent rather than a proactive change agent. But in the current times, especially, post the pandemic, where adapting to this unprecedented change was a necessity actually for survival, we actually saw HR leaders, making this transition. So, in the context of a post-pandemic world where things are slowly getting back to normal, how do you envisage HR taking up a more proactive role than it has ever taken earlier?
Well, Shivani, the first instance, I would take a little more closer look at your expression, getting back to normal.
Yeah.
There's nothing getting back to normal. I think there's a mindset we'll have to first accept. In reality, there's no going back to normal as we knew in 2019.
Yeah.
And the faster we accept that, the easier will be to come out of denial.
Yeah.
And denial is never a good strategy. Things have changed, let's accept it. And let's move on.
Yeah.
I mean, there are people who are hankering to go back to normal. When we go back to normal, we'll do this and we'll have this and this. There is nothing like going back to the normal as we knew. And there's not bad news either.
Yeah.
Now, the the priority is to adapt and adopt to the new situation that we are facing today. Now, the good news is
Yeah.
that during the COVID period, HR took a amazingly major leadership role in every organization. So the
Absolutely.
most experienced line managers were completely out of depth. So what to
Hmm.
do? Because we are
Hmm.
dealing with human beings, with emotions, with disruptions, with fears.
Hmm.
And the only people who could address this issue as a part of the portfolio was HR. And
True.
being part of the fraternity, I'm very proud that the HR community lived up to its reputation to the hilt. We did a fantastic job. I mean, it was amazingly how we HR people rose to the occasion and the line managers acknowledged and followed. The next
Absolutely.
news is that we should continue the leadership. It is not that it's over and done with and we pat
Yeah.
ourselves on the back, but
Yeah.
the idea is to keep the leadership in the business revival.
Yeah.
So the proactive part is not going to be just a nice feeling that okay we should be proactive um, and we were reactive for various reasons. The
Hmm.
60s went off in welfare,
Hmm.
meeting
Hmm.
basic
In
requirements. The
relations.
70s and the
Yeah.
part of the 80s went off in industrial relations with
Hmm.
all sorts of strikes and industrial unrest across the country, whether it was Datta Samant or whether Jyoti Basu
Hmm. Hmm.
and Sen in East. It was disruption, 15 years
Hmm.
of complete industrial relation.
Hmm.
Then came this whole ambiguity about HR being a change agent. And that was a time
Hmm.
when everybody expected HR to be a change agent. Not many
Hmm.
of us knew what change agency is all about. But we all
Yeah.
called ourselves change agent. And we thought that we were
Yeah.
all change agent. Then came this buzzword business HR partnership role.
Hmm.
I think we are the only function where we give ourselves a label every decade. The bottom line, in my opinion, is
Hmm.
that proactiveness is an act of mind. You have to think
True.
proactively and not
Hmm.
think of yourself as an agent to do certain activities set out in the organization chart. And that's why
Yeah.
now, post COVID, there's a lot of opportunity for us to become proactive. Never before
Yeah.
we had so many opportunities to become proactive by by being served on a silver plate, literally.
Hmm. You know you've taken us very beautifully through the journey of how as a function HR has evolved right from the 60s till today. You've done very extensive research on this topic as well, HR being a proactive change agent, and you've spoken and written about it on a number of platforms. I'm sure the audience would love to know your thoughts and insights into this very important role of HR, if you can share your thoughts around this.
Yeah, it is important to sort of stop in our running around and pause to think what opportunities are in front of us and how do we leverage that. Uh,
Hmm.
I used a simple technique which Shell was famous for, or rather is famous
Hmm.
for, called scenario planning.
Hmm.
So every 4 years, Shell would collect some 200 odd very different type of people, diverse people from futurologists to actuarial to even seismologists,
Hmm.
type of people and financial analysts,
Hmm.
economists to
Hmm.
work out certain scenarios. What
Hmm.
if this happens? How
Hmm.
would Shell react to it?
Hmm.
And what would Shell do about it? It's called scenario planning. It's a very, very
Sure.
powerful, and I'm glad my friend LS is on the line, and he's one of the expert on this subject. Um, that scenario planning envisages certain scenario.
Hmm.
Sometimes they're ridiculous. How
Hmm.
can it happen? But that
Hmm.
is the beauty of scenario planning. You envisage something very unforeseen and plan for it in advance. And I'll give you one
Right.
simple example, Shivani. Sometime in
Hmm.
mid 80s, one of the
Hmm.
scenario planning looked at what if Soviet Russia breaks up.
Hmm.
Mid 80s, when Soviet
Hmm.
Russia was at its peak of power.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
today we are talking about China
USSR.
breaking up into small provinces, and people
Yeah.
say, oh, come on, that's a ridiculous kite flying exercise. It was not so.
Hmm.
When in December 91,
Hmm.
Russia did break up. I think it was
Hmm.
December 91 or somewhere around that time. Shell
Hmm.
was among the first one to take out the scenario planning and
Hmm.
say, what did we decide? Update it. And a
Hmm.
plane took off to a place called Sakhalin in northern Russia, minus
Hmm.
17 degrees in summer. and met the mayor of the place while in the third day of the breakup of Russia and signed a deal for extracting oil. One of our major competitors was that day meeting in London in a heated conference room, deciding and discussing what do we do now that Russia has broken. See the advantage of
The difference.
proactiveness. When
Yeah.
you take focus, attention, and plan in advance, you have a
Yeah.
tremendous advantage from every point of view, whether it's business or whether it's personal life. It's a
Absolutely.
reactive mode. You just react into situation that comes up, and
Yeah.
your reaction is not always well thought through. But in a
Yeah.
proactive mode, you can think through what I will do if this happens. And that is
Yeah.
why this research that I did, I identified about 13, actually I identified more, but 13 main items. And I presented this paper in Sri Lanka almost last year, but quite a few of them are already happening. When I put up this paper and showed it to a couple of colleagues, they smiled at me when I had written about moonlighting in one of the uh, uh, prophecies, if I can call it prophecy or forecast. It is no, this will not happen. And today we are submerged
Grappling.
literally up to the neck with everybody talking about moonlighting.
Yeah.
So this is not kite flying. This is planning.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if you are carefully looking at the te- tectonic plates moving under you, and you are able to decipher which direction is moving and what impact will it have on me, you are better prepared to meet the future. And I think HR can do
Absolutely.
a lot of things. And these 13 items or 14 items that I identified in my small study, applying my uh, mind to technique of scenario planning, has thrown up some of the things which are almost some of them already happening. I'm
Okay.
not bragging about it. The idea is
Sure.
these are practical common sense. It's not that, oh, suddenly we have
Sure.
discovered the wheel. But the idea is in a systematic way, you segregate certain problems that are likely to happen or certain opportunities likely to come up. It's not always problem.
Yeah. Yeah.
We always mistake problem solving with you are
Yeah.
solving something. But we
Yeah.
sometimes miss out that we can leverage something if we identify in advance.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
those are the things I've done in my small study. And I'm pretty satisfied when I talk to my colleagues and get reaction that, oh, yeah, we are struggling with this, or we will struggle with this. And so, bottom line is that this is an opportunity for HR to become proactive,
Yeah.
look at those subjects, and prepare for it now rather than wait for it something to happen and be told or be
Yeah.
caught unawares that, oh, this is caught up with us.
Sure. It's a great, concept that you've spoken about, right from scenario planning. I think, and it's something that you did way back in the 80s when something like this was not even, close to what we, thought of HR
Shell,
as.
Shell did it.
HR was.
Yeah, Shell did
I
it.
remember HR doing PM and IR in the 80s. That's what it was known for, and then it transitioned to HR in the 90s. So, doing a scenario planning in that kind of an environment in itself is a sign of HR being proactive. And like you rightly said, reactive actually does not give you time to think because you're doing firefighting all the time. And a lot of HR professionals find themselves in that scenario a lot of times because they're always firefighting. And when you're firefighting, there's actually no time to sort of sit back, think, and be proactive. So it becomes a sort of a vicious cycle, wherein you cannot get out of it. So it's very interesting to know that, how can one read about those 13, 14 strategies that you've put together, sir? Is there a way that people can get to know about it?
Yeah, I can
Would
share
be
an
very.
article with you, Shivani. If you have some
Yes.
site where people can access, I'll be more than happy
Sure.
to share that. But I can share some of the salient ones if you have the time and
Please do.
appetite for them.
Please do that. I'm sure it'll be of a lot of value to people today, who
But
joined
the
us.
idea of the background of this proactiveness must be understood before we go to the item of proactiveness.
Yeah.
The mindset in HR is in some people's mind that we are there to facilitate smooth running of business, or we have a functional expertise of dealing with talent, whether it's acquisition, development, or uh, compensation, or whatever it is. And we are specialists in that, and that is what our charter is. I look at it slightly in a different perspective. This is our charter, this is our bread and butter. We cannot run away
Yeah.
from this, nor should
Yeah.
we slacken on that. That
True.
is what we are there for. But in
Yeah.
addition to that, if the mindset is that I can shape the business, not support the business,
Facilitate
shape the
and
business.
support. Absolutely.
That
Very well
mindset
said.
gives you excitement to play with big boys and big girls in the business. Then you're not
Absolutely.
sitting and I sometimes looking for a place on the table or asking for a place on the table. I find it very insulting and demeaning when many HR
Absolutely.
people talk about we need to have a place on the table. You don't need to have a place on the table. You need to
Yeah.
earn it. And by
Yeah.
earning it, you have to do something to earn that. Now, I'm not giving
Very true.
some gyan here that oh, we must earn this, all
No, no,
this, but I would like to be called on the table if I'm because I'm a box on the organization chart. But if I'm adding value and I'm called on the table, I would say that okay, I'm adding some value. So shaping business can be is it? It is possible. It's only a question of
yeah.
taking a bit of extra in the job, putting some extra
Hmm.
in the job to say, can I think little outside my domain of
Yeah.
HR? And it's
Yeah.
possible. If you
Hmm.
permit, I can share one example. In one of
Sure.
my assignment in the mid 90s,
Hmm.
we were looking at a particular skill, technology for chip making,
Hmm.
and we had a very big plant. We were world leaders in chip making, and one that particular slice of expertise was what the business was looking for. And there
Hmm.
was this company by a Silicon-based promoter who had
Hmm.
established in Noida, uh,
Hmm.
and some small 450, 460 odd people in that
Hmm.
industrial cubby hole.
Hmm.
And the business
The
leaders had a
erstwhile.
discussion with
Hmm.
pardon?
Hmm. The erstwhile Noida Industrial Belt.
Yeah, is it gone now?
No, I mean the way it was earlier,
Yeah,
like
it was
very,
a
very
gray,
unorganized.
gray
Yeah.
building, dull and drab. And
Yeah.
so some of the business leaders, when we had a discussion, they said, we want that particular skill set.
Hmm.
So being cheeky sometimes it helps. So we said, well, there's no problem, we can poach. Because
Hmm.
our compensation was the 75th percentile those days. And
Hmm.
it was something that we'll make an offer which you can't refuse. It was almost sounding like a
Hmm.
Godfather movie. That we'll make an offer which you can't refuse. But that was how it is. So very cheekily we said, oh,
Uh,
we'll poach. But the
hmm.
problem was the ethical standard of the organization would not allow to take
Hmm.
some set of people, say 50, 60, and ask them what others were doing in the
Yeah.
continuity of behind them or ahead of them. That is not ethical.
Yeah.
So in one
True.
of our discussions, sometimes you open your big mouth and get into trouble or get into excitement. So I
Hmm.
suggested, why don't we buy the whole company? It's not a very big.
Wow.
And people said, buy the whole company.
Hmm.
Um, Now that set a mind
Hmm.
thinking that why go for this 50, 60 people out of this 450, 460? Why not buy the company?
Hmm.
To cut it short, we did buy the company.
Hmm.
Now, how much to evaluate? Because the finance people had said the assets are almost sub-zero, written down.
Hmm.
The
Hmm.
only asset was 467 good quality,
Employees.
trained, specialized, skilled people. And what's the
Hmm.
guarantee that they will not leave you in 1 month's time?
Yeah.
So putting a valuation. So I had a very bright colleague in my Bangalore, Karthik, and very bright, much brighter than
Hmm.
I could even think myself at that age.
Hmm.
Um, so I pulled him out, made him
Hmm.
part here, and
Hmm.
how do we handle this acquisition of only human resources company?
Hmm.
I asked a few friends around, and everybody looked at it and said, "No idea."
Hmm.
Obviously,
Yeah.
blind leading blind, but we did buy
Hmm.
the company. And we asked the line managers that what is the knowledge transfer period approximately?
Hmm.
And they said
Hmm.
anything between 10 to 12 months.
Hmm.
Our first attrition was in the
Hmm.
14th month
Wow.
for two reasons. We did not know how to handle it,
Hmm.
but we put our neck into it. We'll find some way. In fact, I was listening to Saurav Ganguly's interview
Hmm.
yesterday.
Hmm.
Um, 10 lessons from Saurav Ganguly. Everybody finds lessons from everything from Mr. Sunak becoming a prime minister to what are the lessons he learned. One summary was that in
That's
one
the
comment he
trending.
mentioned
That's
that
the trending topic.
there's a trending topic, yes. And one of the comment he made that I feel that I'm capable of doing anything if I put into place. Put me in the situation and I will
Hmm.
make it. Now that type of confidence in oneself, not arrogance, it's confidence
Hmm.
or
Confidence,
ability to take
absolutely.
risk.
Yeah.
Now,
Yeah.
fantastic team. I had one lady manager, Shonali Gupte, and she was great
Hmm.
in execution and working with business leaders. Our
Hmm.
first attrition in 14 months. Now, what is the
Hmm.
summary of this? It's not bragging about something.
Hmm.
We took a risk, we
Hmm.
announced it, we put our neck
Hmm.
to it, and we made it happen.
Hmm.
Along with business, not alone.
Sure,
But the
of
fact
course.
is, when you do it once like that, next time you have an
Yeah.
idea, people listen like this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that
Because
is
you've
the
sort of proved it.
proactiveness of HR. That is the
Yeah.
proactiveness of HR. That, hey, listen to these blighters. They may have something nice. They have a track record of proving that they can do it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a
I
very
guess
beautiful
we now
example.
we'll say, but where do we get opportunity? We are tied up with attrition, all these fancy words like great resignation and moonlighting. We are tied up with everything. Where's the time to do all this?
Hmm.
In my opinion, time expands to fill the work available. Period. His time
Hmm.
just expands to fill the work available. If you are
Hmm.
interested, you will find time.
Hmm.
And this is not some
Very true.
gyan or some lecture, motherhood lecture. But the fact is that we are happy with some of the youngster people, and I keep coaching many of them and mentoring them. Leave
Hmm.
your screen. HR is
Hmm.
not looking at a screen and answering an email in a hurry.
Yeah.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's be with people. If you are, in fact, I used to find in my team that if my team members did not answer my call for 30 minutes or 40 minutes,
Hmm.
and they did not reply to my mail for next 3 hours or even that day, I would
Hmm.
feel actually more comfortable. Why? No, really. And I was
I hope the
because
bosses today are
because
listening to this.
they were doing the right thing. They were with people.
Yeah.
Mail can.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying
Wait.
neglect your mail and messages, but have
Yeah.
your priority. Your job is to be with people. Feel the pulse.
Yeah.
And then connect
Absolutely.
people strengths and weaknesses with business
Hmm.
solutions. So proactive is
True.
nothing but helping business run better, grow the business.
Absolutely. 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 No, I completely agree with you. We talk about HR finding a space for itself in the boardroom. Why does it have to find space in the boardroom? The boardroom should actually look for, the HR person being
I
there, and
like
that
your
will
approach.
happen only if. No, I mean it's a fact. If the boardroom sees you as a, like you said, as a box in the org structure, then you have to really
In fact,
vie
the
for that
boardroom should
place
feel empty if the HR is not there.
if the HR is not there. Absolutely. But
They
for
should
that,
feel
I
the
think, sir,
absence.
a lot of responsibility for that lies on HR itself in
Oh
terms of
yes,
how is it
not
able
lot,
to add
all the
value and not
responsibility.
just
You are not
support and not
invited
just
because you are
support
HR. You are invited because you are needed and
because you
adding
add
value.
value. Absolutely. So when it comes to people strategy, you're there to add value and you're there to not just help and support, but actually run the business as a partner with the
Correct.
business.
And shape the
So
business.
that's
I use the word shape because you can
absolutely.
shape the business.
Yeah, very true, sir. And it was a beautiful example that you gave. Of course, an appetite of risk, definitely, but a very practical example of proactiveness way back, in the 90s. Again, so lots to learn from there. But I'm sure you'll agree with me that for
Why do you go
driving,
back to say that time matters? The same opportunity, if it came today, it will be as relevant.
absolutely, it will. I'm saying
So I
it was
think
done
the
at a
younger
time.
generation today of the HR
Hmm,
fraternity is far more uh, proactive
hmm,
and actually
hmm,
more sensible and pragmatic than what our
hmm.
generation was. And they are bold to call a spade and openly say this is not
Absolutely.
working. And we saw this during
Yeah,
work from home. A
yeah,
lot of HR
yeah.
people had their opinion with their voice. Somehow in our earlier days, it was little compliance oriented, okay,
Yes.
we'll stay, but quietly. But anyway, today opportunities are much more, and today's generation is more capable. The only thing is, they need to be made aware of their strength.
Yeah.
If they have that muscle power, and if they're
Yeah.
using it on misusing it or flattering it away, there's a word like that, flattering it away. I don't know if there's a word like that, but scattering it away, then
Yeah.
I think they are misusing their potential.
Absolutely, sir. And the way HR has been operating has also changed in these 2 years. Kudos to our fraternity for holding everybody so well together in under such times. I mean, when pre March 2020, none of us thought that we could run offices online. I mean, for us, office meant going to office, having a brick and mortar structure in place with people around, and doing all sorts of engagement that we used to do. But getting everybody together in this online world was a real challenge, and a lot of HR professionals have been able to really do it very innovatively and talk about it. So definitely something
And also,
worth.
there was a challenge of emotional nature. People were getting disjointed, they were afraid, there were
Yeah.
illnesses to deal with, death to
Yes.
deal with. Um,
Yes.
I mean, it was a tough time. And fortunately, the HR held its way together.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And who becomes HR for HR? That was the buzzword in between, that while HR is absorbing all that is coming their way, but who is their HR? So they've
Very
even
true.
dealt with
Very
that kind of a adversity. So coming to driving change. Now, driving any kind of change, we've all seen in organizations that have led very successful change management initiatives, employee buy-in is a must, wherein you have a complete support of employees. In fact, one of the organizations that I've worked with in my career, there was a very big, implement ERP implementation plan, but it wasn't, though the company had invested lots and lots of money into it, but it wasn't successful simply because people did not believe in it and there was not enough employee buy-in. So my question to you is that, what role do you think HR can play to ensure a buy-in by employees for any kind of organizational change?
In my view, Shivani, what is our job? If you ask a basic fundamental question, what is HR for? HR is to connect organization and people together. The purpose
Yeah.
of the organization and people's own aspirations. I mean, this is very high sounding fundas that, big thing, but it's not so big.
Hmm.
If the organization purpose and approach to anything is well entrenched in people's mind, HR is doing a good job. And for that,
Right.
you require very clear engagement with
Hmm.
employees, not once in a
Hmm.
while. What
Hmm.
I call, there should be a
Regular.
consistency.
Yeah. Yeah.
Consistency. You don't
Absolutely.
just call people for a town hall because you are doing something big, and then you
Yeah.
forget them, and people say, "Oh, today what announcement will they make? Oh, our appraisal system has changed, or the salaries are going to be slightly less this year than last year."
Hmm.
People see through all these games.
Yeah.
If HR is has a clarity of what to communicate and consistency of communicating continuously, there's no
Hmm.
surprises.
True.
Then people are receptive to,
Consistency. Yeah.
habituated that okay, we'll be kept informed. Now this is a very
Right.
significant quality for any change. There could be
Hmm.
no bigger change than closing down an operation in Bangalore, for example. It's a
Yeah.
tough change.
Tough.
I mean,
Very
we
tough.
can bring
Most
about a
tough.
change. The
Yeah.
biggest challenge for any line manager, business manager, or HR professional is to close down a
Hmm.
business.
Yeah.
Now, touch wood, when the mobile communication came in the 96 around, when
Hmm.
the mobile phone started in October,
Hmm.
there was a business we had called Pager.
Hmm.
You were not even born that time when pagers were
No, no,
there.
sir. I was born. I've used the pager
Okay.
once. Thank you for the compliment.
So we had a pager factory in Bangalore. We
Hmm.
had a
Hmm.
pager service, first
Hmm.
BPO of its kind. We had to
Hmm.
close that down. Now
Okay.
we had hired those people handpicked. Okay, numbers were
Hmm.
not very large, 450, 500 people, but they were
Hmm.
handpicked and they had young people with aspirations to
Hmm.
join a big organization, and we had to
Hmm.
close.
Hmm.
Now here is where I realized what I'm talking about engagement. We were continuously in talk with them for the whole year and a half
Hmm.
when the SMS came into it. That look,
Hmm.
the future doesn't look too good because
Hmm.
our technology has become
Change.
obsolete.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we were selling to China by tons, almost by
Hmm.
we used to sell almost by truckload. But when will
Hmm.
China orders stop? Nobody knows.
We don't know.
So
Yeah.
the uncertainty of future, and we
Hmm.
kept on informing people continuously of every month, every 2 months, what is happening
Hmm.
on business front, good news and bad
Hmm.
news.
Hmm.
So when the time came to close down, we were
Hmm.
absolutely open in our communication.
Sure.
You can ask any question in a town hall.
Hmm.
What benefit will you get?
Hmm.
Let's talk in public.
Hmm.
No private deals. And of course, we made liberal benefits much more with the law, but that's a different story. The
Hmm.
fact is that when we communicate authentically with the people, they
Yeah.
appreciate. When you sugarcoat something and try to
Yeah.
hoodwink the system and say, we'll get away with this, I think we are making a complete mockery of communication and engagement.
Of ourselves as
So,
well.
to answer your question, it is the
Hmm.
thorough engagement where people are
Hmm.
involved. And if
Hmm.
people are involved, now they may not agree with you.
Yeah.
It's not necessary that people must agree with you.
Yeah.
Engagement doesn't mean buying, does not mean everybody raises their hand and say,
Yeah.
we are with you. No,
Yeah.
but they understand. And
Hmm.
if you have to take
They
a tough
understand the
call,
why.
the
Hmm.
why of it. And if they
Hmm.
understand the finality of it and the
Hmm.
whyness of it, the
Hmm.
buying will be there. They may not like it.
Yeah.
But and we are not here to negotiate everything that okay, well, large number of people like it, will do it. No, we are running a business, not a circus. This is
True.
not a circus. Now,
True.
if you are clear about what to communicate and you are authentic in
Hmm.
communicating, people are
Hmm.
intelligent enough to understand this is it.
Yeah.
But sometimes we have to have time for that. We got to
Yeah.
find a leadership willing to communicate and face the employees and
People.
be bold
Yeah.
enough and respectful enough to answer questions. Many
Yeah.
times we said, oh, no, 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 it will be too difficult to handle. In
Yes.
some cases, there's genuine industrialization problem.
Hmm.
Um, uh, I mean, there are times when employee communication can go haywire in
Yeah.
industrialization environment.
Yeah.
I don't know if Dr. Solanki is on the line, but he was one day mentioning about communication in, I think, somewhere where the industrialization problem is going on. And
Hmm.
I was amazed at how honest communication can be distorted.
Yeah.
So there are dangers
Yeah.
of it. But idea, bottom
Yeah.
line is communicate with people openly.
Hmm.
I'm not saying don't have any trade secrets.
Hmm.
I'm not that naive.
Has to be
But at
done
the same
intelligently.
time,
Yeah.
do an authentic job.
Yeah.
And
I think the
people
message
buying
here
will
is
be, acceptance
the
may not be there, but there'll be buying.
yeah.
There's a
Yeah.
difference in buying and acceptance.
Yes.
Buying is I
Yes.
understand, but I
Yeah.
don't agree with
That
you.
it's required. Yeah.
But if you don't agree, can't be helped. Sorry. Sometimes you have to
Yeah.
take a hard pill, you have to take a hard pill.
Yeah. True. No, absolutely. It's not possible to make everyone happy, but
No, we are
the
not
key
running
message.
a voting
Yeah.
system here to run a company.
Absolutely. And I think the key message, the key takeaway here is consistency in communication. Like how you
And
mentioned,
authenticity.
sharing
And
both
authenticity.
authenticity. So sharing both the not just the good news but also the bad news with people,
Yeah.
and doing it on a consistent basis. That is what probably brings the trust in the intentions of the
And I think
management.
Shivani, you must also, it should be two-way communication, not dumping.
Yeah. 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 True.
Now, two-way is difficult. It's very easy to say on a webinar like this, we must have two-way communication. Ideal picture, People listening will say,
But
oh,
it's
this guy is just painting a theoretical picture, whitewashing everything. Of course, I am whitewashing. It's not so easy.
hmm.
But two-way communication means sometime listening,
Yeah.
then conveying. And when you listen, you understand the perspective that people come with. And you can tackle
Yes.
communication by addressing those perspectives. If they have a fear
Absolutely.
of losing job, how much notice will
Yes.
I get? Will I get 3 months time to find a job, or will they do it for
Yeah.
Monday next? Now, it will
Yeah.
say, but we'll tell you all this later on. No,
Yeah.
don't wait
We
for
should.
people's fear to grow.
Absolutely.
These
It's
are
in fact
difficult things
very
to do it in real life. Very easy to talk on a webinar like this.
absolutely. So there was a research, and the number one reason why people are wary of change or why change fails in an organization is the fear of loss of job, and it is in fact the least well tackled by management, and that is why a lot of change management initiatives fall flat. I've seen this, in one of my companies where you said the two-way communication is important. I absolutely agree with it because what happened there was only one-way communication. It was coming as a directive from the management without actually understanding the issues at the ground. People who are at the
That's
ground would know
that's
the
the problem.
reality, And when you thrust something upon them without knowing the real picture, it is bound to fall flat. So I think consistency
Second,
and
you
the
can
two
actually
way.
tailor make communication. Even
Yeah.
same news can be tailor made. For example, in post-COVID era, now that we are looking at gig workers coming in,
Hmm.
and
Yeah.
with government mulling over on the labor code fixed time contract as legitimate way of running business,
Yeah.
chances are people will not be afraid to lose job.
Hmm.
So that your communication can be then tailor made to those sentiments that don't
Hmm.
worry about employment,
Hmm.
get concerned about employability.
Hmm. Very well
We
said, sir.
will help you upgrade your
Yeah.
skill,
I'll
your
upskill.
knowledge.
Yeah.
You will be
Yeah.
sharp.
Yeah.
You'll not lose a job and say, "Ah, what do I do next?" If you are
Hmm.
employable, the
You
future will be more palatable to you if you are employable
absolutely.
rather than employed. So,
Absolutely. Very, very
your
well said, sir.
communication is then changed. Why are you worried about employment
Yeah.
as long as you are
Yeah.
employable? And
Absolutely.
gig working, not worker, working will bring about this change in youngsters. I don't need a
Hmm.
permanent job. I'll work
Hmm.
for 9 months in a year, 3 months I'll go to Seychelles and stay on the beach. Why not?
Hmm. Hmm.
When we're talking about work from anywhere, I can imagine a situation where somebody in IT industry writing a code and algorithm sitting in a Goa shade on a
It has
beach.
happened, sir. People have posted on Instagram doing this during the during the
Is it?
pandemic. People have
They're
done that.
lucky.
Yes,
They're
absolutely.
lucky.
Working from the hills and
Why
working from
not?
so many other
Why
places. Why
not?
not? Absolutely. But I can see a lot of interest in the conversation going on. And Kokila has a question here. She says two-way communication is possible all the time. Management will not like to do it all the time. Will the management not like to do it all the time?
I mean, manager will not like doing it all the time. Are you questioning the management or are you telling them, Kokila?
I think the question means that it's probably not possible all the time, because would the
No, I
management want
think
to do it all the time?
there's a there is a difference here, Kokila, in the possibility of doing it and willingness to
Hmm.
do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Possible it is. You may not go into town hall every second week, but if
Yeah.
you have a desire, you can go and have listening post. Today with
Hmm.
technology, we can have collecting any type of information question as long as
Hmm.
you address the concerns of people. If you
Yeah.
don't have willingness to address for whatever a legitimate reason, oh, this is too secret or this is too premature, that's your call. Nothing wrong with that, Gopala. But at the end
Right.
of the day, do not say we will communicate and not listen to people.
Yeah.
Is my way or highway doesn't work. So
Sure.
communication, like what Shivani mentioned, that it should be two ways. There must be giving information, data, facts, figures, and
Yeah.
listening also. Now, I'm not saying that it should be equal proportion. We are running a business, a real situation, but you cannot say it will be only I'll do my presentation, my town hall, and walk off.
Hmm.
Now, I
Then it
mean
becomes a tick in
management
the
will not
box.
like doing it all the time.
Hmm.
If you are meaning here, Kokila, that managers are reluctant to do two-way communication, then it's a situation how to manage management,
Exactly. Then the management needs training more than the employees do.
possibly.
Great.
In fact, one of my colleague in Unilever, very very nice gentleman, jokingly his name was Dr. Parekh, he was a medical officer, but very
Hmm.
jovial person. He would say the one of the best way to manage change is sometimes
Hmm.
change the management.
That's a good one. I think that's the quote of this episode. Hilarious. Awesome. Okay, some more questions coming in the
So
comment
Kokila is
section.
asking, if I can interrupt
Hmm.
Shivani, I'm
Yes, please,
talking about the
please.
willingness. I think it's a very
Please, yeah.
valid point, Kokila.
Hmm.
We must be willing in the first place to communicate. If you're not willing, then it'll be very half-hearted attempt and it's not
Hmm.
likely to succeed. But if you are
Hmm.
willing, it doesn't mean that you are willing to share everything, but
Hmm.
increase your willingness to communicate and you will find acceptability coming in much faster. Try it out, Kokila.
Yeah. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Kokila. Sir, no, I don't think any episode can be, complete without a question on moonlighting. So here's a question here, sir. How HR should react to moonlighting? Does the responsibility lie on HR as well? What's your take on it?
I'm very clear in my head about moonlighting, and it is not because I'm outdated or obsolete or from Jurassic Park. I feel moonlighting is wrong.
Hmm.
Period.
Hmm.
You commit to work for an organization with your eyes
Hmm.
wide open that
Hmm.
I'll give my best to this organization, and then quietly slipping out to do some work because you have a computer at home, and some smart people bought a second computer so that IPP um,
Is not
cannot be
visible.
tracked.
Hmm.
And they thought they were very smart. Of
Hmm.
course, they were smart. The ethical mindset of
Integrity.
people cannot be replaced by smartness. And I'm
Hmm.
very strong in my opinion on
Hmm.
this.
Sure.
Moonlighting is wrong because we look at moonlighting in the context of this IT industry. And I spent half my life with, not half, but large part of my life with Motorola and IBM. So I'm from the
Hmm.
IT industry, so I'm not talking
True.
as an outsider or a stranger.
Hmm.
We sometimes make this IT industry and knowledge workers a poster boy of media.
Hmm.
They are talked about, they're written about.
Hmm.
Moonlighting, they can do one. So what? One of the very person who I know well, heading the one of the large IT company not too long ago, now doing on his
Hmm.
own, went
Hmm.
to media to say there's nothing wrong with moonlighting.
Hmm.
If I meet him, I'll ask him to bet 1 rupee whether if he was in the chair, he would allow moonlighting 5 years ago or not. He would have been the
Hmm.
first one to sack the person who's doing moonlighting. And
Hmm.
now suddenly everybody wants to be sounding contemporary. They want to be sounding futuristic. I look at moonlighting differently. Okay, to answer your question very candidly,
Hmm.
moonlighting is wrong for simple reason.
Hmm.
Because you have an opportunity,
Hmm.
you are misusing the opportunity, not giving the full time attention to your current work. Now people say, well, if I do after work, what attention? I'll do it.
Hmm.
If you sell
Hmm.
pakoras after work,
Hmm.
that's a different thing.
Hmm.
Now,
It is the
because of
content.
this
Yeah.
poster boy image of knowledge industry, which is possible to do. If I do 8 hours
Hmm.
work at X company and then two,
Hmm.
3 hours I do moonlighting, so what's wrong with it? Everything is
Hmm.
wrong with it. Now imagine if this analogy was to be applied to manufacturing sector.
Hmm.
A person works for 8 hour shift. Consider
Hmm.
half an hour, 1 hour of traveling time and goes and works in another company for another shift. Would you feel comfortable?
Hmm. Not at all.
Let's not glorify this moonlighting. I totally agree with Mr. Premji and Sanjeev Patel of IBM, and they recently
Hmm.
went boldly on the media that this
Hmm.
is wrong. There are
Hmm.
some people who are actually now pussyfooting the issue because they feel that if they take a very hard stand, their recruitment will be affected. They will not be
Hmm.
considered as an ideal employer to join.
Hmm.
In my humble
Hmm.
opinion, don't look for short-term gains.
Hmm.
Stand on a principle and stick to it. Those who
Hmm.
are aligned with your principle will join you. Those who are
Hmm.
not aligned, it's good that they join you. They don't join
Hmm.
you.
They
It's
don't
good.
join you. Hmm.
It's good. Stay
Yeah.
principle oriented. I mean, stay with the belief. And why I said in the beginning, I'm not from Jurassic Park. This is not old dated theory that, oh, people who don't believe in moonlighting are outdated. It's not.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's a question of giving your best.
Yeah.
If you have a meeting which is going up beyond 6:30 and you say, oh, this moonlighting thing 7:30, I've got a meeting with my other company client, you think you'll give
Hmm.
your best in that meeting? Now
Hmm.
people say, but why should I stay late? I can finish my work at
Hmm.
5:30. Of course you
Hmm.
can, but you never compartmentalize like this is my time and this is not your time. If you
Hmm.
want to live a life of professional commitment, and besides ethically it's wrong.
Hmm. Ethically,
It's
yes.
ethically wrong.
Very interesting views, sir. Very different views from what has been doing the rounds. Definitely, this is a topic that can, go on and on and on, and people may have different points of view. But coming to, this current challenge of war for talent. Across industries, HR leaders are finding it difficult to hire good talent, and then there are challenges like moonlighting, great resignation, silent resignation, all of that. Now, all of this instability, somewhere leads to a serious impact on the business as well. So in this context, which is talent acquisition, how can HR play the role of a proactive change agent in making hiring decisions with an eye on the future? And it's very tough. I recently was talking to a friend of mine who heads HR for an IT company, and she said my appraisal this year had gone for a toss, not because I did not hire people, but because so many people backed out at the last moment, and my tact for recruitment went haywire. So it is a genuine challenge that HR leaders are facing.
Yeah,
What's your
it's a
opinion,
tough
sir?
scenario, but I feel that is restricted to, again, knowledge workers and
Yeah,
ITES type of industry. There's a
yeah,
shortage of jobs in manufacturing. And in
yeah.
all this hullabulla that we do about big and rich and famous names, we forget
Hmm.
there's a whole section of medium scale and medium sized, small scale companies which are struggling to survive.
Hmm.
Jobs
True.
are short there. People who are
Hmm.
looking for jobs and holding it with both hands.
Hmm.
We get carried away with this. I'm sounding very class stratification, but I can take the liberty because I've spent my career in those companies.
Sure.
Now, the challenge of demand supply will continue as long as the business continues.
Yeah.
And it's not the first time. In
Yeah.
in Y2K crisis, we had the same situation. There
Yeah.
were more jobs than people available, and people switch
Hmm.
jobs. Now
Hmm.
the attrition rate of over 37%, 39% in IT must be
Hmm.
hurting. It does hurt people.
Hmm. Hmm.
Now, one way is to blame the whole system and the environment. Second is to cut down losses.
Hmm.
Hold on to good people.
Hmm.
Don't go by numbers. Go by quality.
Hmm.
COVID has thrown one thing, that these need boxes that we see in organization chart and who will do what well defined. There's a pressure for more for less, likely to increase, whether it's knowledge worker or with manufacturing or the service. And
Well
to
said. Yeah.
meet that challenge, we got to
Hmm.
think in a way what is practical. And the practical
Hmm.
part is, in my opinion, and part of my research on scenario planning, Shivani, that these
Yeah.
need boxes that we have in organization chart will get blurred.
Hmm.
And time
Interesting.
will come in order to
Hmm.
get more for less. Two boxes might do work or three boxes.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not saying they'll have to stay extra hours and burden of work will increase.
Technology,
But
better way of doing work. Hmm.
and skill required to do the half
Yeah.
box extra work.
Hmm.
But it's possible to do that.
Hmm.
Now, I'm not saying that every time you don't can't find people, retain your people to do that extra work. But
Hmm.
idea is to have one good selection process.
Hmm.
If you chase numbers, you'll get numbers. If you chase
Hmm.
talent, you will buy talent. And if your reputation or the organization is so fragile that people
Hmm.
just come in like a railway platform and go away, then you
Hmm.
shouldn't be worried about that. Repair your reputation first. But
Yeah.
good organization will attract good talent, and
Hmm.
people will join good organization for long-term career. Now,
Hmm.
long-term career doesn't mean years. This is where
Hmm.
our mindset has to change. We
Hmm.
always associated long-term career with loyalty, with
Hmm. Tenure.
steadfastness.
Hmm.
Tenure was important. That
Long service
Rolling
awards.
Stone, what this cliche Rolling Stone gathering.
Hmm.
Nowadays, youngsters, if they've changed 4 jobs in 6 years, they feel proud
Hmm.
that, you know what, I got 4 different experience in 6 years.
Hmm.
Earlier, if people change jobs in 6 years time, once we'll say, can't you stay in a job for a long period?
Hmm. Yeah.
So coming to the hiring part, I think one, you got to be pragmatic, that hire for skill. And if
Hmm.
your knowledge upgradation system is strong,
Hmm.
where you're adding, seen as adding value, people are
Hmm.
smart enough to join that organization and stay
Hmm.
and accept the offer and join.
Absolutely.
There will be a slice of talent which will jump for 10, 15, 20% extra and go away.
Yeah.
In Delhi, in the cyber park, when all the IT buildings were next to each other, people who go for interview at lunchtime
Yeah.
get a job and not come back post lunch.
Yeah.
Now, I am not putting any value judgment. It's the right thing or wrong thing to do. It's their choice.
Hmm.
But are you really looking for that type of flippant workforce, or are you looking for people to build careers?
Stable.
And if you say,
Yeah.
but where is the time to build careers? We are hiring people with 3 years. One major IT company announced last 3 weeks ago that they've done away with interview for certain category of base jobs. Those who apply will appear online, and if they pass certain marks, they will be given.
Tests.
Now, if we take shortcuts like that, then let's not blame the talent
People.
pool which is
Yeah.
coming to us.
Yeah.
Those youngsters are looking for excitement, looking for good career, looking for good compensation. And if you treat them like whether you come or not doesn't make a difference. Anyway, you are not
They'll
that
also
important to be interviewed. Then they will also
they'll also
take you
treat
for
like that.
granted.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Very true, sir.
I mean,
Very true.
it's how you treat people. You are treated exactly the way you treat people.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I think the key message there is a higher, a higher for skill, and more than that, I think have opportunities to upskill your own people, because that's what makes people stay. Today, compensation, of course, is a major. People are getting 100% hikes on what they are already earning, and so it's not something that companies cannot match. Good companies can do that, but is it? But still, despite getting that kind of a hike, people still choose to leave, which means they don't see this as a career destination. So I think a lot of
No, but
work.
again,
Uh,
don't go by a hike alone. There was a time when India was a source of talent
hmm,
in the early 2000s, mid
hmm,
2000,
hmm,
and the only reason was cost arbitrage.
hmm.
A talent in
Yeah,
India was 6 times less costly than same talent in US. Six
US. Yeah,
times.
very true.
So people came to hire in India till
Hmm,
people places like Manila
hmm, hmm.
came into the same game, and
Yeah,
their compensation was 6 to 8% less than India.
hmm.
So cost
Yeah,
arbitrage doesn't win games.
yeah,
It's the
yeah.
quality arbitrage.
Absolutely.
So
And
people
I
will
think,
change jobs for higher compensation, but the party doesn't
yeah,
last that long.
yeah,
Compensation were
yeah.
15, 17, 20% in the mid 2000. It came down to 7 to 9% in
Hmm,
last
hmm,
6, 7 years.
hmm,
Single digit, and people would
hmm.
balk at the idea of less than 15% increase or 20% increase.
Yeah,
So when you today talk about 100% increase, you can actually count them on the fingertips.
yeah.
It's like going to campus. What is the salary you get? Somebody will say we got 40 lakhs.
40
How
lakhs.
many
Yeah,
40 lakhs? One. And rest 27 lakhs.
yeah,
So let's
yeah.
not pick and choose data to suit our convenience. And
Hmm,
those who are interested in 100% increase,
hmm,
they must be deserving it. Why would
hmm,
any company give them 100% increase? They were either underpaid by the previous company, which lost them,
hmm.
or they were
Yeah,
undervalued, or
yeah,
they have upgraded themselves. Let's celebrate these youngsters' talent, pay them the
yeah.
right amount, and if some don't join, it's
It's
all
all right.
right. It's part of the
Yeah,
game, but
yeah.
it does disrupt the business.
It
So
does.
idea is
Very
to
badly.
increase your pipeline, and that is
Yeah.
where there was a concept called staffing way
Hmm.
back in the Rajan. I don't know if he's on the call. He's one of my very trusted colleagues which I whom share ideas, Rajan Sinha. But there was a
Hmm.
time when staffing was done where
Hmm.
recruiters kept on
Hmm.
hunting for people without an offer in hand.
Hmm.
And I do remember Motorola, we had one gentleman in Asia Pacific whose job was staffing.
Hmm.
And I couldn't understand what does he do all day.
Hmm.
So he said, I keep track
Build the
of
pipeline.
certain
Hmm.
people, where are they going, where are they. Once in a while I drop them a mail, call them up, hi, hello, and keep in touch. Next time I have vacancy, all I do have to do is just make a phone call.
Yeah. It's the
Now
connect,
that
the
technique
constant
doesn't
connect.
work for large scale hiring. You're not,
Yeah.
and people who are hiring
Yeah.
1,500, 1,700 people cannot do this. But
Yeah.
there's a method in madness.
Hmm.
And we have to find that method. How do we keep track of certain people? Why they're not joining? Find out what is it
Hmm.
that did not join. Don't repeat the same mistake.
Hmm.
I was aghast coming from
Hmm.
Unilever where once in a while a person would accept the offer and not join. Once in a while.
Hmm.
And that would
Hmm.
become, I was head of recruitment in one of my avatar, and that would be
Hmm.
like, wow, person has not joined. Where did we go wrong?
Hmm.
And there will be analysis, paralysis of finding out.
Hmm.
I'm not saying everybody will join. If
Yeah.
joining to selection to joining ratio is for 20%, is still
Hmm.
very high. But if it
Hmm.
goes up to 30-35%, start worrying.
Hmm.
Get a cutting edge. It's not only by money.
It's not by
Either it
money,
is
for
your
sure.
approach to certain aspiration to the people, technical
Hmm.
knowledge, upgrading their knowledge. Look for some non-monetary, and you'll be surprised how these youngsters respond
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
something of value.
Hmm.
Money will come, they'll buy a new motorcycle and that's all. They'll buy a new
Hmm.
Nike or a new iPhone 14 or
Hmm.
15, whichever was there at that time. But
Hmm.
they will value if they get the right type of development. And many
Yeah.
companies have taken the eye off the ball, Shivani, that anyway
Hmm.
they will not stay with us.
Hmm. So why
There's a
should we?
cartoon I read somewhere that the CEO and CFO talking, and CFO justifying money. Sir, why
Hmm.
invest in training them? Because they will
Hmm.
go and work for competitor anyway. And the CEO's
Hmm.
answer was very apt. He said, what if they
Hmm.
don't and they stay with
Don't.
us?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
You'll end
you
up with
collect
dead wood.
junk. You collect
Yeah.
junk. And when you
Yeah.
collect junk, junk does not attract good talent. People
Absolutely.
join company because they'll rub shoulders with bright people and become bright
Yeah.
themselves.
Absolutely. Absolutely, sir.
Why do
I.
people, companies like Unilever, ITC, Procter and Gamble, I'm
Hmm.
just taking names,
Hmm.
why do they attract good quality talent?
Hmm.
Because the rest of the
There's
talent is so good that
good.
people
Yeah.
want to be associated and learn from peers.
Absolutely, sir. And this is very true, sir. I have experienced this myself that, working in an organization which has good, bright people around you adds a lot to your own profile
Oh
and your own
yes, oh
learning and
yes.
your own career development vis a vis an organization where you are the only one who's good.
That's
And
what
there
they
is.
say, that if you are the smartest person in the room, then you're in the wrong room.
Absolutely, I completely agree with that, sir. Wonderful discussion, sir. And there are numerous questions coming in and numerous comments flowing in. But I'll take one question around people coming back to office now. A lot of HR leaders, in fact, the other day I was having a conversation again with the HR leader of an IT company, and he was sharing that it's a challenge to get back people to get people back into the office. But what's more challenging is to integrate the people with the culture, especially people who've joined remotely
During that
during the
period.
pandemic, and they've experienced the virtual culture while they've never got an opportunity to experience the real workplace culture. So what's your advice for HR leaders who are actually grappling with this change? How do
I, I
they
won't I
sort
won't
of?
call it any advice. I'm as much a learner as any of my HR colleagues. But the fact is that we must segregate two issues. One, people, the whole concept of going back to
Hmm,
workplace.
hmm,
Recent data, I think it was Deloitte. I don't know if SV Nathan is on the call, but he's an expert on this. Uh,
hmm,
I think a sample size of 2,600 odd people, maybe plus minus
hmm,
100. It shows some very revealing data.
hmm,
It shows 82% of the male responded
hmm.
wanted to go back to work. Work means go back to some form of
Office.
an office.
Yeah.
Only 47% of the women polled showed the same inclination.
Hmm,
Now, this is a trend. One has to be careful. And I'll come to your part about people who joined during that hiatus period.
hmm,
uh, Women, one biggest advantage that came out of COVID, and two
hmm,
biggest thing that gift, as I can call it, came to us because of COVID, was this myth about women got broken.
hmm,
Working from home, there's this myth
hmm.
that women can't do that much of involvement. There's this mother-in-law
Yeah.
syndrome, and they can't take away their attention from family. They can't manage multi complex stuff because of their two lives, one at home, one at office, that got broken completely.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, because it was a myth, there's a
Yeah.
bias. People who thought like that were
Very true.
biased. And I'm
True.
being very candid about it. But when
Sure.
women did equally well, if not better than men during work
Hmm,
from home,
hmm.
it has opened up an opportunity to look at gender equality and gender opportunities once more. And that's
True.
what proactiveness is all about.
Yeah.
That you can now hire more women because there's a proven track
Geographically.
record they
Yeah.
can do equally good job.
Absolutely. Geographies have opened up. And you can hire,
Second, with the
yeah.
technology coming in, earlier we used to promote people to positions of leadership based on their
Hmm.
gray hair or no hair.
Hmm.
Tenure mattered.
Yeah.
And oh, so and so years experience, must be department head, must be director, must be. Fortunately, that is also broken. And that's good news. Because with technology coming in, today you don't promote people
Hmm.
based on their gray hair or no hair approach, but based on their techno managerial knowledge, not managerial experience.
Hmm.
So people who are tech savvy will become
Exactly. Yeah.
leaders faster. And in fact, one data, little dated, is about 4 years, 5 years old, but it still
Hmm.
gives an indication that somewhere in 25 years span when the data was collected 5 years ago, so we are going back to history, but it showed that average age of leadership had fallen down by 11.1 year in 20, 30 years. That means
Hmm.
those became department head or
Hmm.
directors at the age of 41 were now becoming
Hmm.
that same position at the age of 30.
30 years. Yeah.
So this is good news.
Yeah.
So COVID has opened up a lot of opportunity. Now people who joined during the COVID period remotely and suddenly been plucked out of their comfort of home and taking a video call in their shorts and coming to work now and sitting meeting their boss in reality. I
Hmm.
think the one of the way to integrate them is not to give them lectures and induction and this is what a culture is all about.
Hmm.
I have in fact suggested to one of the CEOs struggling with this, be practical. Find out some work that is cross-functional of
Yeah.
nature. Any issue that you're facing. Could be any
Hmm.
small issue, big issue. Put 3 or 4 cross-functional teams together
Hmm.
and have a mixture of people who are there with the company for a long time, people who are joining
Hmm.
new. Put them on a
Hmm.
project.
Hmm. Very good
Simple.
idea.
There's no better way to learn the culture of the company than to work with
By
somebody who's
working
been there, done
cross-functionally.
that, and work on
Excellent
a
idea.
whether we should have one more tea vending machine with a different flavor of hot chocolate or not. Let 5 people meet and decide. How much
Hmm.
does it cost? Where will we get it? How many people will buy it? It may not matter whether we are serving hot chocolate or not.
Hmm.
I'm just giving a
But
trivial example. But put
yeah.
them together to work on a common theme.
Yeah.
And that's the best way to integrate. Oh, this is how we do.
Hmm. Great idea, sir. I hope people listening to Dr. Busrai today work on this. Actually, the power of cross-functional teams, CFTs is what we used to call them. The cross-functional
Great.
teams, even during the pre-pandemic times, was very powerful. And I think with the pandemic, now offices opening up, people who've not culturally mixed with each other, I think it's a great idea and a great takeaway. Awesome. I think we are already just about to actually we've completed our time, but there's a short section that we always do towards the end, which is getting to know our speaker a little more on the personal front. So coming back now from the change agent, let's get to know Dr. Busrai as a person, sir. A rapid fire round that we've introduced, because it's been a very enriching conversation as far as HR being a proactive agent of change is concerned, and with so many takeaways, with so many very practical examples that you've given out of your career, I'm sure a lot of people have benefited from it. But I'm sure all of us would like to know a little more about you as a person, so I'm going to ask you a few questions, and please be as candid as you can, and it's like a rapid fire round, so please be as quick as you can. So my first question is that if you were to go back and change one decision of your life, what would that be? If you want to change.
Well, there's so many decisions I would have changed, but one major decision would have been I would have done my PhD much earlier
Okay, and why would that be?
because their discipline for a disorganized, indisciplined person like me, the discipline of PhD brought in a method of doing something, and that knowledge, if I had got earlier, I would have done use that knowledge so much more. Not that I regret it now, but I'm doing my second PhD, but
Wow.
now it's becoming like I wish I had done it earlier.
Okay. So doing a little early PhD is what you would have changed in your life. Okay, if you could have any superhero power, what would it be and why? Imagine you got a superhero power.
My childhood favorite was Superman.
Okay.
and continues to be Superman. So if I get a comic strip of Superman, I still read them. I don't get them now, but sometime if I get hold of it, I read them. Superman was a hero to me for he could solve day to day miseries of people, and ordinary people were affected by him. And I thought he was really good. I mean, he did it in a very um, dramatic way, whatever he did. But my imagination was fired by Superman, so I think I would still hero worship him.
You would still hero worship and you would want to have that superpower
Yeah,
of
if I could do
solving
something
people's
like him, why
miseries.
not?
Why not?
Except to wear underpants
I'm sure.
outside my trouser and fly.
Well, it's good to be different. Or that's all that I can say. Last question. If you could choose one song to play every time you walked into a room, what would you choose and why? One song.
One song.
Hmm.
It's a difficult, but impulsively I would say um Lara's theme is from Dr. Zhivago, and it goes something like, somewhere, my love, there will be song to sing, although the snow covers the signs of spring.
Awesome.
That's my
I didn't
favorite
know
song.
you could sing that well. Thank you so much. On that note, thank you so much, Dr. Busrai. It's been an absolute pleasure
Thank you
to
very
have this
much.
conversation with
Thank you
you.
for
I'm sure the
inviting me.
audience.
It was a privilege. If there's any feedback from my colleagues on the call, I would appreciate. If we could have done
Lots,
something differently, I would like to learn. In fact,
lots
what we
and
have
lots of
shared,
good
if there's
comments.
anything we can learn from the people on the call, if there is some way you can make that channel work, then learning becomes complete for all of us. You know, all of us can
Absolutely.
learn from each other. And I think I would
Absolutely.
leave that thought to you, that if there's any way we can consolidate some learning from others on the call on the issue
Sure.
that we talked about, we would get a different perspective. But thank you for inviting me,
Sure.
Shwani. Appreciate that.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And thank you to the audience who joined us today on a Friday evening at 6 o'clock. It's time to, unwind and ring in the weekend for the people for whom weekend starts on a Friday. Thank you, everyone. And stay tuned for the next episode. And as Dr. Busrai has said, please do share your comments and any thoughts that you have on this topic in the chat box in the comments. This recording would be available on all the pages that we are streaming live on. So please feel free to share your views and make the learning holistic and complete. Thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. Thank you, Dr. Busrai. Absolute
Thank you.
pleasure
Thank you
talking to
very
you.
much.
And see you soon. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you.
you very
Bye
much.
bye.
Bye, sir. Bye.